It was just an accident, right, Mother? James's voice echoed through the emergency room as I lay on the gurney, each breath sending sharp pains through my chest. I watched through tear-filled eyes as my mother-in-law, Patricia, dabbed at her perfectly made-up face with a tissue. Of course it was. I was just trying to help her with those heavy boxes. I would never. She let out a theatrical sob that made my stomach turn. Help me? She deliberately pushed me down our basement stairs after I'd refused to give her the spare key to our house. But now, lying here in excruciating pain, I couldn't even speak to defend myself. My name is Sarah, and 2 hours ago, my mother-in-law tried to kill me. It started this morning when Patricia showed up unannounced at our house, demanding a spare key. Every mother should have access to her son's home, she'd insisted, following me as I carried boxes of holiday decorations to the basement. I'd refused, reminding her of the last time she had a key, when she'd rearranged our entire house while we were at work, claiming she was helping. That had led to a huge argument, and James had finally agreed to change the locks. You're just trying to keep my son away from me, she hissed, her perfectly manicured hands clenching into fists. You've always been jealous of our relationship. I'd turned my back on her, a mistake I now deeply regretted. The last thing I remembered was her hands against my back, then the sickening sensation of falling. The stairs seemed endless, each bump and crack against my body bringing new waves of pain. Now, in the emergency room, James stood between us, looking lost and confused. Mother, maybe you should wait outside while they examine Sarah. Patricia's face crumpled into another theatrical display of concern. But I need to make sure she's all right. I feel so terrible about this accident. Before anyone could respond, a tall doctor with steel-gray hair walked in, holding my preliminary x-rays. Dr. Maxwell, according to his name tag, took one look at the scene and his expression hardened. I need to examine Mrs. Anderson privately, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Everyone out, please. But I'm her husband, James protested. Out. Dr. Maxwell repeated firmly. Hospital policy for suspected domestic incidents. Patricia's perfectly composed face cracked for just a second. Domestic. This was an accident. I would never. Mother, James interrupted, taking her arm. Let's give them space. He shot me a look that clearly said, don't say anything, before leading his mother out. As soon as the door closed, Dr. Maxwell turned to me. Mrs. Anderson, I'm going to be direct. These injuries are not consistent with an accidental fall. The angle of impact and the pattern of bruising suggests you were pushed with considerable force. Tears welled up in my eyes. Finally, someone was seeing the truth. There's more, he continued, putting up my x-rays. These hairline fractures in your ribs, they're in various stages of healing. Some are fresh from today, but others are weeks, maybe months old. Would you like to explain? I stared at the x-rays, my mind racing back to all the accidents over the past year. The time Patricia had accidentally opened a door into my face when I'd caught her going through our personal documents. The incident with the falling bookshelf that she claimed wasn't properly mounted. Each time, James had begged me not to make a fuss, to keep peace in the family. Mrs. Anderson, Dr. Maxwell's voice was gentle but firm. As a mandated reporter, I cannot ignore signs of domestic abuse. But I need you to be honest with me about what's happening. I opened my mouth, then closed it again. Years of conditioning to keep quiet, to maintain family peace, warred with the pain in my body, and the evidence literally illuminated before me. If I tell you, I whispered, will you make sure she can't get to me while I'm here? Dr. Maxwell nodded, pulling up a chair. You have my word. And Mrs. Anderson, you're not alone. We have resources, people who can help. But first, I need you to tell me exactly what happened today. As I began to speak, telling him about the stairs, the key, and all the previous accidents, I felt something inside me strengthen. For the first time since this nightmare began, someone was actually listening. One more thing, Dr. Maxwell said, making notes in my chart. We found traces of sedatives in your preliminary blood work. Have you been prescribed any medication recently? My blood ran cold. The tea Patricia had insisted on making me this morning, claiming it would help with my anxiety. I'd only taken a few sips because it had tasted strange. No, I said, my voice shaking. But my mother-in-law made me tea this morning. Dr. Maxwell's expression darkened as he made another note. I'm calling the police, he said, reaching for the phone. This goes beyond domestic violence. We're looking at attempted murder. Outside the room, I heard Patricia's voice rising in pitch. demanding to know what was taking so long. For once, her theatrical concern didn't make me doubt myself. The x-rays didn't lie, and neither did the blood tests. Finally, someone was going to know the truth. The police arrived within 20 minutes, their presence sending Patricia into another round of hysterics. "This is ridiculous." I could hear her shrieking in the hallway. "I'm a respected member of the community. I serve on the hospital board." Through my partially open door, I watched James pace nervously as two detectives approached him. His face had gone pale, and he kept running his hands through his hair, a habit he had since childhood, according to the countless stories Patricia loved to tell. Detective Sarah Martinez introduced herself to me, her kind eyes contrasting with her no-nonsense demeanor. She recorded my statement while a photographer documented my injuries. Dr. Maxwell stood nearby, pointing out the concerning patterns in my x-rays to her partner. "And this wasn't the first incident?" Detective Martinez asked, though she clearly already knew the answer. I shook my head, wincing at the pain. "There were others. The bookshelf, the door." I tried to tell James, but he always said I was overreacting. "The blood work shows traces of lorazepam," Dr. Maxwell added, "a prescription sedative. Mrs. Anderson hasn't been prescribed any such medication." "But I bet someone in the family has," Detective Martinez said, making notes. "We'll need to check pharmacy records." That's when James burst into the room, his face contorted with anxiety. "Sarah, please, you can't do this. She's my mother. Think about what this will do to our family." Detective Martinez stepped between us. "Sir, you need to leave. Your wife is giving a statement." "My wife?" James laughed bitterly. "My wife is trying to destroy my mother's reputation over an accident." "Sarah, tell them it was an accident." I looked at my husband, really looked at him. The man I'd married 5 years ago, who'd promised to love and protect me, was now standing there begging me to protect the woman who tried to kill me. "It wasn't an accident," I said, my voice stronger than I expected. "None of them were accidents, James. And deep down, you know that." His face crumpled. "She's getting older. She gets confused sometimes. We can get her help. Keep this private." "Private?" Dr. Maxwell interrupted, his voice sharp. "Your wife has multiple healing fractures. She was drugged today before being pushed downstairs. This isn't confusion, Mr. Anderson. This was attempted murder." A commotion outside drew everyone's attention. Patricia had somehow slipped away from the officer watching her and was trying to push her way into my room. "Sarah, darling," she called out, her voice dripping with fake concern. "Please tell them this is all a misunderstanding. You know how clumsy you can be." Detective Martinez's partner blocked the doorway. "Ma'am, step back or you'll be arrested." "Arrested?" Patricia's voice rose to a shriek. "Do you know who I am? My husband founded this hospital wing." "Mother, please," James begged. "Just wait outside." "No." Patricia's mask finally cracked completely. "I won't let her ruin this family. She's been trying to come between us since day one, James. Everything was perfect before she came along." The detective reached for his handcuffs. "Ma'am, you need to." She deserved it. Patricia suddenly screamed, her composed facade shattering entirely. "She's trying to keep my son from me. She's nothing but a gold-digging little." The rest of her rant was cut off as the detective officially placed her under arrest, reading her rights as she continued to scream accusations. James stood frozen, watching his mother being led away in handcuffs. His face had gone completely white. "I need to go with her," he whispered, not meeting my eyes. "She needs me." "Mr. Anderson," Detective Martinez said firmly, "your wife is the victim here. She needs you." But James was already backing toward the door. "I'm sorry, Sarah. I can't. She's my mother." I watched him leave, following the path they'd taken with Patricia. The pain in my chest had nothing to do with my broken ribs. "We'll need to get a restraining order," Detective Martinez said gently. "For both of them." I nodded, tears finally spilling down my cheeks. Dr. Maxwell patted my hand sympathetically. "You did the right thing," he said. "Who knows what might have happened if he'd stayed quiet." Looking at my x-rays still illuminated on the wall, I thought about all the times I'd stayed quiet, all the accidents I'd endured to keep peace in the family. Each ghostly fracture was a reminder of what that silence had cost me. "What happens now?" I asked Detective Martinez. "Now," she said, pulling out her card, "we get you help. I know a fantastic victims advocate who specializes in domestic violence cases. And Dr. Maxwell has already arranged for a psychological consult to help you process everything. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt something like hope. The road ahead would be hard, but at least I wasn't walking it alone anymore. Dr. Maxwell adjusted my pain medication as a nurse came in to check my vitals. Outside, I could still hear Patricia's distant screams echoing down the hospital corridor, but they were fading away, just like my fear of her. 6 months later, I stood in front of the courthouse, taking deep breaths of the crisp autumn air. Today was Patricia's sentencing hearing, and for the first time since that day in the emergency room, I would face both her and James. "Ready?" Detective Martinez asked, standing beside me. Over the months, she'd become more than just the investigating officer. She'd become a friend. The trial had been brutal. Patricia's legal team had tried everything to discredit me, painting me as an unstable woman who had orchestrated my own injuries to frame a beloved community figure. But the evidence was overwhelming. The security footage from our home showing her pushing me, the pharmacy records revealing she'd been filling lorazepam prescriptions at 3 different pharmacies, and most damning of all, her own journal detailing her plans to remove the problem from her son's life. James had testified for the defense, claiming his mother's actions were due to early dementia. The psychiatric evaluation proved otherwise. Patricia was perfectly cognizant of her actions. She was just a master manipulator who couldn't stand losing control over her son. "I'm ready," I answered, straightening my shoulders despite the twinge of pain. A lasting reminder of that day. Inside the courtroom, I sat with my victim advocate, Lisa, who'd helped me rebuild my life over the past months. Thanks to her, I found a support group for survivors of family violence, started therapy, and even returned to my career as a software developer. Patricia sat at the defense table, looking frail and harmless in her conservative blue suit. But I knew better now. I watched as she whispered to James, who sat directly behind her, still playing the devoted son. The judge entered, and we all rose. After everyone was seated, Patricia was asked to stand. "Mrs. Patricia Anderson," the judge began, her voice stern, "this court has found you guilty of attempted murder in the 2nd degree, domestic violence, and multiple counts of assault. Your actions were not only premeditated, but showed a disturbing pattern of escalating violence against your daughter-in-law." Patricia's shoulders started to shake with sobs, but I noticed her eyes remained dry. "Your position in the community and your attempts to use that influence to escape consequences only make these actions more reprehensible. This court sentences you to 15 years in state prison, with no possibility of parole for 10 years. The gavel struck, and Patricia's theatrical sobs turned to rage. "This is all your fault," she screamed at me as officers approached to take her into custody. "James, tell them what she's done to our family." But James just sat there, head in his hands, as his mother was led away. After the courtroom cleared, he approached me in the hallway. He looked older, tired, nothing like the confident man I'd married. "Sarah," he said softly, "I'm sorry. I should have seen it. Should have protected you." "Yes," I replied, "you should have." Maybe we could try again. Now that she's gone, we could." "No, James." I cut him off gently but firmly. "You chose her over me every time I needed you. The divorce papers are final next week. It's better this way." He nodded, looking defeated. I never wanted any of this to happen. Neither did I. But it did happen, and now we both have to live with those choices. As I watched him walk away, I felt the last weight lift from my shoulders. My therapist had helped me understand that James had been as much a victim of his mother's manipulation as I had been. But that didn't excuse his choices. Outside the courthouse, Lisa waited with Detective Martinez. "How about some coffee?" Lisa suggested. "We can talk about your speaking engagement at next month's Domestic Violence Awareness Conference." I smiled, remembering how terrified I'd been 6 months ago when she first suggested I share my story. Now I understood the power in breaking the silence. "Actually," I said, "I have something else planned." I pulled out my phone and showed them the email I'd received that morning. It was confirmation of my acceptance into a victim advocacy training program. "I want to help others like you helped me," I explained. "Maybe turn all this pain into something meaningful." Detective Martinez smiled proudly. From victim to survivor to advocate, that's quite a journey. As we walked to the coffee shop, I thought about the woman I'd been a year ago, so desperate to keep peace in the family that I'd accepted violence as normal. The X-rays in the emergency room hadn't just shown my broken bones. It illuminated the broken pieces of my life that I needed to fix. You know what Dr. Maxwell said to me last week at my final checkup? I told them as we sat down with our coffees. He said sometimes it takes being broken to discover how strong you really are. Lisa raised her cup in a toast to strength we never knew we had. I clinked my cup against hers, feeling grateful for this new family I'd found. One built on support and truth, rather than manipulation and fear. The scars would always be there, both physical and emotional, but they didn't define me anymore. They were just part of the story that led me to where I was meant to be. She'll ruin everything, Daniel. Your mother always makes things about herself. My husband's voice carried through our son's phone speaker, not realizing I could hear every word. Just tell her the ceremony is for immediate family only. My son's reply made my heart stop. You're right, Dad. Ashley is more like a real mom anyway. I sat in my car outside Jason's college apartment, where I had driven 3 hours to surprise him with his favorite homemade cookies before tomorrow's graduation. Instead, I was learning that my husband of 25 years and our only son had already decided I wouldn't be welcome at the ceremony. My name is Margaret. I'm 48, and all I've ever wanted was to see my son graduate from college. When Jason was born with severe dyslexia, doctors said he might never read properly. I spent countless nights working with him, researching teaching methods, and fighting with school administrators to get him the support he needed. Now, he was graduating with honors in engineering, and I wasn't allowed to watch him walk across the stage. I waited until they finished the call before driving away, the container of chocolate chip cookies rowing cold on the passenger seat. Ashley, my husband's 32-year-old secretary-turned-girlfriend, had been in our lives for less than a year. After Robert moved out, claiming he needed space to find himself, she'd somehow become a permanent fixture at family events. Back at my small apartment, I pulled out the box I'd been saving for Jason's graduation. Inside was my own graduation gown from 20 years ago, when I'd finally finished my degree while raising a toddler. Robert had called it a waste of time back then. Why did a stay-at-home mom need a college education? But I'd done it anyway, walking across that stage with 3-year-old Jason watching from the audience. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert. Daniel told me you were lurking outside his apartment. Don't make this difficult, Margaret. The ceremony is small, intimate. Ashley and I will be there to support him. You can see the photos after. I stared at my reflection in the bedroom mirror, holding up the old graduation gown. It still fit, though a bit snug around the hips. 20 years of memories flooded back, the late-night study sessions with a sleeping toddler beside me, the pride in Jason's eyes when I got my diploma, the way he told everyone at press school. My mommy's a graduate too. Another text, this time from Jason. Mom, please don't make a scene. This is my big day. Dad says you always try to make everything about you. Just let me have this. My hands shook as I read his words. When had I become the embarrassing mother? The one to be hidden away. I thought about all the school plays I'd attended, the science fairs where I'd cheered maybe a little too loudly, the soccer games where I brought orange slices and enthusiasm. Had my love and support really been so smothering? I laid the graduation gown on my bed, smoothing out the wrinkles. Robert had always been the cool parent, the one who let rules slide and played the fun dad role while I enforced homework time and healthy meals. Now he had Ashley, who posted perfectly filtered photos of their blended family outings on social media, making sure to tag Jason and everyone. My sister Catherine called, having heard about the situation from our mother. You can't let them do this to you, Maggie, she said firmly. That's your son. You earned the right to be there. They're embarrassed by me, I replied, my voice small. Maybe they're right. Maybe I am too much. Too much what? Too much love. Too much support. Too much dedication to your child? Please. Catherine's voice dripped with disdain. Robert's been rewriting history ever since he traded you in for a younger model. Don't let him erase you from your own son's life. I looked at the graduation gown again, remembering the woman I'd been back then, determined, unstoppable, willing to fight for what mattered. Somewhere along the way, I'd lost her, letting Robert's criticisms and Jason's teenage embarrassment chip away at my confidence. Not anymore. I picked up my phone and typed a reply to Robert. You're right. The ceremony should be intimate. Just family. That's exactly why I'll be there. Then I turned off my phone, laid out my old graduation gown, and began to plan. If they thought I was going to miss my son's graduation, they had no idea who they were dealing with. Sometimes being too much was exactly what a situation needed. Tomorrow would change everything, and for once, I wasn't going to apologize for taking up space in my own son's life. The morning of the graduation dawned bright and clear. I dressed carefully, sliding into my old graduation gown with trembling fingers. The blue fabric still held its color, though the gold tassel was slightly frayed. I pinned my long brown hair back neatly, applied minimal makeup, and grabbed my handbag. Inside was a small envelope containing every school photo of Jason, from kindergarten through his college senior year. The university campus was already buzzing with excitement when I arrived. Families clustered together, taking photos and sharing proud hugs. I spotted Robert immediately, his tall frame easy to pick out in the crowd. He stood with Ashley, who wore a tight pink dress that looked more appropriate for a nightclub than a graduation ceremony. They were posing for selfies, Ashley's diamond ring catching the morning light. I took a deep breath and walked toward them, my graduation gown switching softly with each step. Robert saw me first, his face darkening with anger. "Margaret, what the hell are you wearing?" "My graduation gown," I replied calmly. "Class of 2003, remember? The year I finished my degree while raising our son." Ashley's perfectly penciled eyebrows drew together in confusion. "Robert, you said she wasn't coming." Her voice held a whine that made me wonder what exactly they'd told people about me. "She's not supposed to be here," Robert hissed, grabbing my arm and trying to steer me away from the crowd. "You're making a spectacle of yourself. Think about Daniel." I pulled my arm free. "I am thinking about Daniel. I'm thinking about the little boy who sat in the audience at my graduation, who told me he wanted to be just like his mommy someday. I'm thinking about every late night we spent working through his dyslexia, every victory we celebrated, every obstacle we overcame together." "That was years ago," Robert scoffed. "He's grown up now. He doesn't need his mother hovering over him anymore." "No," I agreed. "He doesn't need hovering. But he deserves to have his mother present on one of the biggest days of his life, whether it's convenient for you or not." I spotted Jason then, in his graduation robes, standing with a group of his friends. His eyes widened when he saw me, a mix of emotions crossing his face: embarrassment, confusion, and something else I couldn't quite read. "Mom," he called out, walking over. "What are you wearing?" "My graduation gown," I said again, opening my bag to pull out the envelope of photos. I thought today would be a good day to remember where we started. I handed him the first photo, kindergarten, his smile missing 2 front teeth, his Daniel name tag crooked on his shirt. "This was the day you told your teacher you couldn't read the alphabet because the letters kept dancing. Remember what we did that night?" Jason's hands trembled slightly as he took the photo. He made letter cookies, said we could eat them only after we named them correctly. And within a month, you knew every letter by heart. I pulled out another photo, 3rd grade science fair. "Remember this project, the one about sound waves?" "You helped me build a guitar from scratch," he said softly. "We stayed up until midnight getting it perfect." Robert tried to interrupt, but Jason was already reaching for the next photo. Each image told a story, not just of his achievements, but of our journey together. Mother and son, fighting every obstacle that came our way. "I didn't come here to embarrass you," I said finally, watching his face as he looked through the memories. "I came because 20 years ago, you watched your mom graduate college. You told everyone who would listen that if I could do it, you could too. Today, I get to watch you prove that you were right." Tears welled in Jason's eyes. "Mom, Mrs. Bennett," a voice called from behind us. We turned to see Professor Matthews, Jason's academic advisor, approaching with a warm smile. "I thought that was you in your graduation gown. Daniel has told me so much about how you helped him overcome his learning challenges. Would you mind if I shared your story in my speech? It's quite inspiring." Before Robert or Ashley could object, Jason spoke up. "Actually, Professor Matthews, would it be possible for my mom to sit in the front row? She deserves to be there." I watched Robert's face turn an interesting shade of purple as Jason led me to the family seating area. Ashley's perfect pout trembled, but for once, neither of them dared to object. As I took my seat, smoothing my graduation gown over my knees, I caught snippets of conversations around me. Other parents were sharing their own graduation stories, some even wishing they'd thought to wear their old gowns. A few of Jason's friends came over to tell me they'd never known about his dyslexia, that they were amazed at how far he'd come. Just before the ceremony began, Jason squeezed my hand. "I'm sorry, Mom. I forgot who helped me get here. I let Dad and Ashley make me think that being enthusiastic about your kid's success was somehow embarrassing. But you know what? I'm proud to have a mom who cares enough to be too much." The ceremony was about to start, but this wasn't the end of our story. As I watched my son take his place among the graduates, I knew that sometimes the biggest victories come not from being quiet and accommodating, but from standing your ground and refusing to be erased from your own story. The graduation ceremony was beautiful. As Professor Matthews shared our story in his speech, I felt the atmosphere in the auditorium shift. When Jason's name was called, I stood up and cheered, not too loudly, but with all the pride a mother could hold. To my surprise, several other parents stood with me, creating a wave of support that brought a bright smile to my son's face. After the ceremony, while families gathered for photos, Jason approached me rather than joining Robert and Ashley's perfectly orchestrated photo session. "Mom, would you take a picture with me first? Both of us in our graduation gowns." We posed together, our matching blue gowns creating a beautiful symmetry. A professional photographer who had overheard our story asked if she could capture the moment. "This is what graduation is really about," she said, "generations lifting each other up." Robert watched from a distance, his jaw tight. Ashley kept trying to insert herself into the growing crowd around us. But for once, she wasn't the center of attention. Other parents were coming up to share their own stories of overcoming obstacles with their children, of fighting for their kids' education, of never giving up. "Mrs. Bennett," one mother said, tears in her eyes, "My daughter has dyslexia too. Would you mind sharing some of the techniques you use with Daniel? We've been struggling." Before I could answer, Jason jumped in. "Mom's amazing at breaking down complex reading strategies. She actually created this whole system using music and rhythm. It's why I can handle engineering texts now." The pride in his voice made my heart swell. This was the son I knew, not the one who had been temporarily swayed by Robert's manipulation and Ashley's artificial perfection, but the kind, appreciative young man I'd raised. Later, during the reception, Jason pulled me aside. "I need to show you something," he said, leading me to a quiet corner. He pulled out a folded piece of paper from under his graduation gown. "I wrote 2 speeches for today. This is the one I didn't give." I unfolded the paper carefully, reading his words. "To my mom, who wore her graduation gown today to remind me where I came from. Who never gave up on me, even when I gave up on myself. Who taught me that sometimes the biggest act of love is being too much when the world tells you to be less. Thank you for every late night, every flashcard, every moment you fought for me. This diploma belongs to both of us." Tears blurred my vision as I looked up at my son. "You didn't need to give this speech," I said softly. "You showed me everything I needed to know today." "But I want everyone to know," he insisted. "Dad's been trying to rewrite our family history since he met Ashley, making it seem like you were the problem. I let him convince me that his new perfect family was better than our real one. I'm done with that." As if on cue, Robert approached us, his face stern. "Daniel, Ashley's arranged a celebratory dinner at La Blanc's. Very exclusive. We should leave now." Jason straightened his shoulders, standing tall in his graduation gown. "Actually, Dad, I'm having dinner with Mom. We're going to Tony's Diner, you know, where we used to go after all my tutoring sessions. You and Ashley enjoy the blanks." The look on Robert's face was priceless. For years, he had worked to diminish my role in our son's life, to make me feel like I was too emotional, too involved, too much of everything. But standing there in my graduation gown, matching my son's, I knew I was exactly enough. That evening at Tony's, over plates of the same chocolate chip pancakes we'd eaten during countless study breaks, Jason and I talked about everything. His plans for the future, his newfound appreciation for our journey, and his determination to stop letting Robert's narrative influence his choices. "You know what, Mom?" he said, smiling over his coffee cup. "I think I want to start a tutoring program for kids with dyslexia, using your methods. Would you help me set it up?" I reached across the table and squeezed his hand, remembering the little boy who once struggled to read his own name. "I'd be honored," I replied, "and I promise not to be too embarrassing about it." He laughed. "Be as embarrassing as you want, Mom. Some things are worth making a scene over." As we left the diner, Jason's friends from the engineering program were waiting outside. They had decided to skip the fancy graduation parties in favor of a casual celebration. "Mrs. B," they called out, "we heard about your cookie letter teaching method. Any chance you could make some for our study sessions next semester?" Looking at these bright young faces, at my son's proud smile, at the graduation gown I had worn with such purpose, I knew that sometimes the best response to being excluded is not to fight your way back in, but to create something better, something real. Robert and Ashley could keep their perfect photos and exclusive restaurants. Jason and I had something they could never manufacture, a genuine bond forged through years of challenges, victories, and yes, sometimes being too much together. That night, as I hung both graduation gowns side by side in my closet, I smiled at the symmetry. Sometimes life comes full circle in the most beautiful ways, reminding us that we never needed to shrink ourselves in the first place. We just needed to wait for the right moment to stand tall, take up space, and show the world exactly who we are. "You're not family anymore." Janet's voice crackled through my phone speaker, dripping with the same contempt she'd shown since Marcus's funeral. "Thanksgiving is for actual family members, not leftovers." I gripped my coffee mug tighter, watching my 8-year-old Emma arrange her father's photos on our living room wall. 6 months after losing Marcus to a sudden heart attack, and his sister was already erasing us from the family. The kids were looking forward to seeing their cousins, I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. "They miss their father, Janet. They need their family right now." "Well, they should have thought about that before you refused to sell us the lake house," she snapped. "That property belongs to the Williams family. Just because Marcus foolishly put it in your name doesn't make it yours." Ah, there it was. The real reason for this call. The lake house, a stunning property that had been in Marcus's family for generations. Janet had been trying to get her hands on it since before Marcus's death, constantly hinting that she and her husband deserved it more than us. "Marcus wanted us to have it," I replied, watching Emma carefully arrange the last photo. "He knew how much the kids love spending summers there." "Please," Janet scoffed. "You've been trying to take everything from us since day one. First, you convinced Marcus to move across town. Then you turned him against us with your ridiculous ideas about boundaries. And now you're clutching onto property that rightfully belongs to his blood family." I thought about the countless family dinners I'd hosted, the holidays I'd organized, the years I'd spent trying to bridge the gap between Marcus and his controlling family. None of that mattered to Janet now. In her eyes, I was just an intruder who'd overstayed her welcome. "Listen carefully," she continued, her voice sharp. "Thanksgiving dinner is at my house at 3 p.m. The real family will be there. Mom, Dad, our cousins, everyone who actually belongs. You and your kids can find somewhere else to go. Maybe that lake house you're so fond of." Before I could respond, she hung up. I set my phone down, my hands trembling slightly. How could I tell Emma and her 10-year-old brother, Jack, that their aunt had banned us from Thanksgiving? They'd already lost so much. "Mom?" Emma's voice pulled me from my thoughts. She stood before the wall of photos, her father's smile reflected in a dozen captured moments. "Did you know Daddy kept this picture in his wallet?" She held up a worn photograph, Marcus and me on our wedding day, both of us laughing as cake frosting dotted our noses. I remembered that moment perfectly. Janet had been furious that we'd chosen a casual reception instead of the formal affair she'd insisted upon. "He carried it everywhere," I said, pulling Emma close. Said it reminded him of why he fell in love with me, because I could always make him laugh. "Aunt Janet doesn't laugh much," Emma observed innocently. "Maybe that's why she's always so mean to us." Out of the mouths of babes, I hugged her tighter, breathing in the familiar scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Sometimes people let anger make their choices for them, sweetheart. But that's their burden to carry, not ours." Later that evening, after putting the kids to bed, I sat in Marcus's old study, surrounded by the remnants of his life. His reading glasses still perched on top of unfinished paperwork, his favorite coffee mug gathering dust on the desk. I opened his laptop, navigating to a folder he'd shown me just weeks before his death. "Just in case anything happens to me," he'd said, his expression unusually serious. "Everything you need to know is in here. Promise me you'll read it if, well, just promise me." I promised, never imagining I'd need to fulfill it so soon. Inside the folder were dozens of documents, financial records, property deeds, and a video file dated 3 days before his death. With trembling fingers, I pressed play. Marcus's face filled the screen, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners as he smiled. "Hi, love," he began. "If you're watching this, something's happened to me. I know my family, especially Janet, will try to make things difficult for you and the kids. They never understood why I chose to break free from their control, why I picked happiness with you over their suffocating expectations." He paused, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache. "I've made arrangements to protect you all. The lake house is legally yours, as you know. But there's more. Janet's been trying to get her hands on the old Victorian mansion downtown. The one Mom and Dad promised her years ago. What she doesn't know is that I bought it last month." My breath caught. The Victorian mansion had been Janet's obsession for years. She'd already planned how she'd renovate it, even picked out paint colors. Their parents had promised to sell it to her at a fraction of its value, a gesture of favoritism that had always bothered Marcus. "I'm leaving the mansion to the kids," Marcus continued. "Put it in a trust until they're older. Janet can't touch it, can't bully you into selling it. I know it seems harsh, but I've watched her manipulate and scheme for years. She needs to learn that actions have consequences." A knock at my door startled me out of my thoughts. It was Jack, his eyes puffy from crying. "Mom, I had a bad dream. About Dad." I closed the laptop and opened my arms. He crawled into my lap, though he was getting almost too big for it. "I miss him," he whispered. "And now Aunt Janet won't let us come for Thanksgiving." "Hey," I said, kissing the top of his head. "How about we make our own Thanksgiving? Just us at the lake house. We can invite your friends from school, maybe some of the neighbors. Build new traditions." He looked up at me, a small smile breaking through his tears. "Can we have pizza instead of turkey?" "Absolutely. Your dad would have loved that idea." I held him close, thinking about Marcus's video, about Janet's cruelty, about the revelations waiting in the well that would be read next week. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about rising above, about building something better from the ashes of what's been lost. Janet might have banned us from her Thanksgiving, but she couldn't ban us from being happy, from honoring Marcus's memory in our own way. And soon enough, she'd learn that her actions had consequences she never saw coming. The week leading up to Thanksgiving brought an unexpected snowfall, and even more unexpected drama. Word of Janet's decision to exclude us from the family gathering had spread, causing a rift among the extended family. My phone buzzed constantly with messages from cousins and aunts, some expressing outrage, others carefully diplomatic. "You can't just cut them out, Janet," I overheard Marcus's mother say during a heated phone call with her daughter. "They're still family." "No, Mom," Janet's voice carried through the speaker. "She's not family anymore. She's just the woman Marcus was stupid enough to marry. And those kids, they barely even look like him." I ended the accidental eavesdropping, my blood boiling. The will reading was scheduled for tomorrow, the day before Thanksgiving. Janet had no idea what was coming, but her latest attack on my children had erased any guilt I might have felt about Marcus's final surprise. That evening, as I prepared dinner, Jack appeared in the kitchen clutching a stack of papers. "Mom, look what I found in Dad's old briefcase." They were blueprints, detailed renovation plans for the Victorian mansion. Marcus had been working with an architect, planning to restore the historic home to its former glory. The margins were filled with his handwriting: "Kids' playroom here, Emma's art studio, Jack's telescope spot." "Dad was going to give us the big house?" Jack asked, his eyes wide. Before I could respond, the doorbell rang. It was Janet, standing on our porch with her usual air of superiority. "We need to talk," she announced, rushing past me into the house. "The kids are home," I warned, but she was already stalking into the living room. "Perfect. They should hear this too." She turned to face me, her designer purse clutched like a shield. "I'm offering you a deal. Sign over the lake house to me, and I'll let you all come to Thanksgiving." Emma, who had been reading on the couch, looked up with hurt in her eyes. "You mean we can only come if Mom gives you our summer house?" Janet barely glanced at her. "The adults are talking, sweetheart. Why don't you go to your room?" "No," I said firmly. "This is their home, and that lake house is their inheritance from their father. You don't get to barge in here and make demands." "That's rich," Janet sneered. "Speaking of inheritance, I hope you're prepared for tomorrow. Mom and Dad have already spoken to their lawyer. Everything of value goes to actual family members." I thought of Marcus's video, of the documents safely stored with our lawyer, of the shocked expressions Janet and her parents would wear tomorrow. But I kept my face neutral. We'll see. You really don't get it, do you? Janet stepped closer, her voice dropping to a harsh whisper. You were never good enough for my brother. He could have married someone from our circle, someone who understood our family's position in society. Instead, he picked you, a kindergarten teacher with nothing to offer but a pretty smile. Jack appeared in the doorway, his father's blueprints still in his hands. Dad said Mom's smile was worth more than all the money in the world. Janet spun around, her face flushing when she saw the papers. Where did you get those? Dad's briefcase, Jack replied. He was planning something special, something you didn't know about. For a moment, Janet's composure cracked. She reached for the blueprints, but Jack quickly backed away. Those are family documents, she snapped. Hand them over. We are family, Emma said quietly, joining her brother. Even if you don't want us to be. Janet's laugh was cold. Oh, sweetie, biology doesn't lie. You two barely have a drop of William's blood in you. Tomorrow at the will reading, everything will go to the real heirs, me, Mom, and Dad. Then we'll see who's family. She turned on her heel and stormed out, leaving behind the lingering scent of expensive perfume and bitter resentment. That night, I held my children close as we looked through old photo albums. Your father loved you more than anything in this world, I told them. No one can take that away, not even Aunt Janet. But what if she's right? Emma whispered. What if we don't get anything tomorrow? I kissed her forehead, thinking of Marcus's video, of his careful planning, of the justice waiting to be served. Your dad took care of us, sweetheart. He always did. The next morning dawned cold and clear. I dressed carefully in the navy blue suit Marcus had given me for our last anniversary, helped Emma pick out her favorite dress, and made sure Jack's tie was straight. We were early to the lawyer's office, taking seats directly across from where Janet and her parents would sit. They arrived in a group, Janet leading the way like a general into battle. Her parents followed, their faces set in matching expressions of disdain. Several cousins and aunts filed in after them, the room quickly filling with whispered conversations and sidelong glances. Mr. Peterson, Marcus's longtime lawyer and friend, cleared his throat. Thank you all for coming. Before we begin the formal reading of Marcus Williams's last will and testament, he left a video message to be played for the family. Janet's head snapped up. A video? We weren't informed of any video. Marcus was very specific about his wishes, Mr. Peterson replied, pressing play on a large screen mounted on the wall. The room fell silent as Marcus appeared, looking directly into the camera with the quiet confidence I'd always loved about him. Hi, everyone, he began. If you're watching this, then I'm gone. And knowing my family, especially you, Janet, the knives are probably already out. Janet shifted uncomfortably in her seat as Marcus continued. I've watched for years as our family's obsession with status and appearances poisoned everything it touched. I chose a different path. I chose love over prestige, happiness over social climbing. I chose Sarah and our children, and it was the best decision I ever made. Tears slid down my cheeks as his image smiled that familiar, gentle smile. So here's what's going to happen. The lake house, as already documented, belongs to Sarah and the kids. But there's more. Janet, you've had your eye on the Victorian mansion for years. Mom, Dad, you promised it to her, even though you knew how much that hurt me. The room was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. Marcus's parents had gone pale, and Janet was gripping her armrests so tightly her knuckles were white. I bought the mansion last month, Marcus revealed, and I'm leaving it to my children to be held in trust until they're 21. Not because they deserve it more than you, Janet, but because they'll appreciate it for what it is, a home, not a status symbol. As Marcus detailed the rest of his wishes, I watched Janet's perfect facade crumble. Everything she'd assumed would be hers, the mansion, the family art collection, even their grandmother's prized jewelry, was going to the people she tried so hard to push away. The video ended, but Marcus's presence lingered in the stunned silence that followed. Tomorrow would be Thanksgiving, and for the first time since losing him, I felt truly grateful. Not for the inheritance, but for the man who loved us enough to protect us even after he was gone. Mr. Peterson picked up the formal documents, but I barely heard him begin the official reading. I was too busy holding my children. watching Janet's world shift on its axis and feeling Marcus's love wrap around us like a warm embrace. "You can't do this," Janet's voice echoed through the lawyer's office as Mr. Peterson finished reading the will. "This is completely unfair. That mansion was promised to me." Her outburst shattered the stunned silence that had fallen over the room. Marcus's parents sat motionless, their faces ashen as the full impact of their son's decisions sank in. "The will is legally binding," Mr. Peterson stated calmly. Marcus was very thorough in his documentation and reasoning. I gathered my children close as Janet spun to face us, her perfectly manicured finger pointing accusingly. "You knew about this. You all knew and let me make a fool of myself." "Like when you banned us from Thanksgiving?" Jack asked innocently. "Or when you said we weren't real family?" Janet's face flushed dark red. She opened her mouth to respond, but her father finally spoke up. "Enough, Janet. Your brother made his choices. We all have to live with them." As we left the lawyer's office, snow had started falling again, dusting the world in white. Emma squeezed my hand. "Mom, can we still have pizza for Thanksgiving tomorrow?" "Absolutely, sweetheart." I smiled, thinking how much Marcus would have loved this moment. In fact, let's make it a tradition. That evening, unexpected visitors arrived at our door. Marcus's parents stood awkwardly on our porch, looking smaller somehow, more human than I'd ever seen them. "We've been foolish," his mother said softly. "Marcus tried to tell us for years, but we wouldn't listen. Would it be possible to join your Thanksgiving tomorrow?" I looked at my children, letting them make the choice. They nodded eagerly. "We're having pizza instead of turkey," Jack announced. "Dad would have liked that." For the first time in years, I saw genuine warmth in my mother-in-law's smile. Yes, he would have. Thanksgiving Day dawned bright and clear, our house filled with the sound of laughter as Jack and Emma showed their grandparents their father's photo wall. The doorbell kept ringing as cousins, aunts, and uncles arrived, family members Janet had tried to control over the years. "We got your text about the pizza Thanksgiving." Marcus's cousin Mike grinned, holding up extra boxes. "Count us in." Janet didn't show up, but somehow her absence made the gathering feel more genuine, more true to Marcus's memory. As everyone settled in with paper plates and pizza slices, his mother stood up, tears glistening in her eyes. "I'd like to propose a toast," she said, "to Marcus, who taught us that real family isn't about properties or prestige. It's about love, acceptance, and yes, even pizza on Thanksgiving." Later that night, after the guests had gone and the kids were in bed, I sat on our back porch, looking at the stars. The Victorian mansion was visible in the distance, its grand silhouette a reminder of everything that had changed. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet. "This isn't over. You've turned everyone against me." I thought about responding but decided that some silences speak louder than words. Instead, I opened Marcus's video on my laptop one more time, letting his voice wash over me. "Remember, love," his recorded image said, "sometimes the biggest gift we can give our children isn't property or money. It's the courage to stand up for what's right, to choose love over bitterness, joy over spite." The next morning, a moving truck appeared outside Janet's house. She was leaving town, someone said, moving to Florida to start fresh. The Victorian mansion would stand empty until the kids were old enough to decide its fate. But that was okay. The house wasn't what mattered. It never had been. What mattered was the lesson Marcus had taught us all. That family isn't defined by blood or inheritance, but by the choices we make and the love we share. As I watched Emma and Jack playing in the snow with their cousins that weekend, I realized Marcus had given us something far more valuable than property. He'd given us the chance to rebuild his family the right way, based on love instead of obligation, joy instead of status. And somewhere, I knew he was watching, probably smiling that gentle smile of his, maybe even laughing at the thought of pizza becoming our new Thanksgiving tradition. Some people say revenge is best served cold. But sometimes, the best revenge is simply living well, surrounded by love, making new memories that heal old wounds. And as I looked around at our unconventional family gathering, I knew we'd done exactly what Marcus had hoped we would. We'd chosen happiness over bitterness, love over spite, pizza over turkey. That, more than any inheritance, was his true legacy. "You're too simple for these events, Emma. What will my colleagues think?" Marcus's words hit me like a slap across the face as I stood in our bedroom, the navy blue dress I'd bought specially for his promotion party still in my hands. "What do you mean too simple?" I asked, though I already knew. After 15 years of marriage, I had become fluent in Marcus's particular brand of criticism. He sighed, adjusting his designer tie in the mirror. "Look, you work as a night cleaner. My colleagues' wives are lawyers, doctors, executives. I can't have you there talking about mops and vacuum cleaners. This promotion is too important." I carefully laid the dress on our bed, smoothing out invisible wrinkles. The price tag was still attached. 3 months of careful saving from my cleaning job at his company's office building. "I thought you'd be proud to have your wife there supporting you." Marcus turned, his expression a mixture of condescension and impatience. "Support me by staying home. I'll tell everyone you're sick." He checked his Rolex, another recent purchase, as he climbed the corporate ladder. "I need to go. Don't wait up." The front door closed with a decisive click, leaving me alone with the dress I'd never wear and the bitter taste of humiliation. I sank onto the bed, my fingers tracing the delicate beading I thought would help me fit in with Marcus's crowd. 15 years. 15 years of supporting him through night school, taking on extra cleaning shifts to help pay for his MBA, ironing his shirts just the way he liked them. When had I become something to be ashamed of? The apartment felt suffocating. I grabbed my keys and work uniform. Might as well head to work early. The familiar routine of preparing the cleaning cart would help clear my head. The office building was quiet at this hour, most employees having left for the day. A few stragglers remained, burning the midnight oil. I nodded politely as I passed, invisible as always in my gray uniform. As I worked my way through the executive floor, I could hear music and laughter from the conference room where Marcus' promotion party was being held. Through the glass walls, I caught glimpses of elegant women in designer dresses, men in expensive suits. Marcus was in his element, champagne glass in hand, laughing at something the CEO had said. I quickly turned away, focusing on emptying trash bins and wiping down surfaces. This was my world now, the quiet hours when the important people had gone home. "Excuse me?" A gentle voice made me jump. I turned to find Patricia Moore, the CEO's wife, watching me with kind eyes. "I'm so sorry to startle you. I was just looking for a restroom." "Of course, Mrs. Moore. It's right down that hallway, second door on the left." I gestured with my cleaning cloth. She smiled warmly. "Please call me Patricia. And you must be Emma, right? Marcus's wife?" My heart stopped. How did she know? Had Marcus mentioned me after all? "I recognize you from the photo on his desk," she explained. "Though I must say, I'm surprised to see you here working instead of at his party. He's been talking about this promotion for weeks." I fumbled for words, heat rising in my cheeks. I wasn't feeling well. I managed, parodying Marcus's planned excuse. Patricia's expression shifted subtly. "I see," she said, in a tone that suggested she saw far more than I was comfortable with. "Well, I should let you get back to work. Though," she paused, reaching into her purse. "Here's my card. Call me tomorrow morning, would you? I'd love to discuss something with you." Before I could respond, she was gone, leaving me holding an elegant business card and a growing sense of confusion. What could the CEO's wife possibly want to discuss with a night cleaner? The rest of my shift passed in a blur. When I got home around 3 a.m., Marcus was already asleep, his tuxedo carelessly thrown over a chair. I carefully hung it up, old habits die hard, before slipping into bed, Patricia's card tucked safely in my wallet. At midnight the next day, just as I was preparing for another shift, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar. "Mrs. Emma Thompson," a deep voice asked. "This is Robert Moore, CEO of Moore Enterprises. I apologize for the late call, but I was hoping we could discuss something rather important about your future with our company." I gripped the phone tighter, my mind racing. What had I done wrong? Was I about to lose my cleaning job too? "Of course, Mr. Moore," I managed to say, trying to keep my voice steady. "Excellent. My wife, Patricia, spoke very highly of you, and after reviewing your night school transcripts and certification in business administration, which you very modestly never mentioned, I believe we have a position that would be perfect for you." Night school. The classes I've been taking quietly over the past 5 years, paid for with extra cleaning shifts, while Marcus worked late. Classes I'd never mentioned because he was too busy climbing his own ladder to notice mine. What position? I asked, barely breathing. Operations manager for our new sustainable practices division. Patricia tells me you've implemented several cost-saving efficiency measures in the cleaning department that have reduced our environmental impact significantly. That's exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. I sat down hard on the edge of the bed, my legs suddenly weak. The recycling program, the eco-friendly cleaning solutions, the water conservation methods, all my little projects I'd worked on between cleaning floors and emptying trash bins. The salary is, of course, substantially more than your current position. Mr. Moore continued. We can discuss details tomorrow in my office, say 9 a.m. Yes, I heard myself say. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'll be there. As I hung up, I noticed a text from Marcus. Working late again. Don't wait up. I smiled, thinking of his face when he discovered his simple wife would now be a fellow executive. Sometimes the best revenge isn't confrontation, it's quiet competence finally being recognized. I arrived at Moore Enterprises the next morning wearing my navy blue dress, the one Marcus had deemed too simple for his party. My hands trembled slightly as I pressed the executive floor button, a stark contrast to my usual nighttime cleaning rounds. Patricia was waiting by the elevator. Emma, right on time, she said with a smile, extending her hand. Robert is looking forward to discussing your ideas about expanding the sustainability program company-wide. As we walked toward the CEO's office, we passed Marcus's new corner office. Through the glass walls, I saw him arranging his desk, probably practicing important executive poses. He didn't look up. The meeting with Mr. Moore exceeded every expectation. The position wasn't just a title. It came with real responsibility, a corner office of my own, and a salary that made my cleaning wages look like pocket change. As I signed the employment contract, Patricia squeezed my shoulder supportively. One more thing, Mr. Moore said, checking his watch. We're announcing several organizational changes at this morning's executive meeting. I'd like you to attend. My stomach flipped. This morning. In about, he glanced at his watch again. 10 minutes. Patricia will show you to the conference room. The executive conference room was already filling up when we arrived. I took a seat near the back, watching as Marcus strode in, head high, claiming a spot near the front. He still hadn't noticed me. Mr. Moore called the meeting to order. Before we begin, I'd like to announce some exciting changes to our leadership team. Marcus sat up straighter, probably expecting more accolades for his promotion. First, I'm pleased to introduce our new operations manager for sustainable practices, who will be spearheading our company-wide environmental initiative. I held my breath. Please welcome Emma Thompson. The room burst into polite applause as I stood. Marcus's head whipped around so fast I thought he might hurt himself. His face cycled through confusion, disbelief, and finally, dawning horror. Emma brings years of hands-on experience with our operations, Mr. Moore continued, along with innovative ideas that have already saved the company significant resources. She'll be working directly with our executive team to implement sustainable practices across all departments. Marcus's face had gone from red to white to slightly green. I smiled pleasantly, making eye contact for the first time. Thank you, Mr. Moore. I'm looking forward to working with everyone. The meeting continued, but Marcus seemed to have trouble focusing. He kept shooting glances in my direction, his pen tapping nervously against his notepad. Afterward, as people filed out, he cornered me by the water cooler. What is this? He hissed. What did you do? I accepted a job offer, I replied calmly, filling my water glass. Congratulations again on your promotion, by the way. Sorry I missed the party, I was working. But you're a cleaner. Was a cleaner, I corrected. Now I'm operations manager for sustainable practices. You should read my proposal on eco-friendly waste management. It's quite fascinating. Before he could respond, Patricia appeared at my elbow. Emma, dear, ready for lunch? We have reservations at La Maison. Marcus's jaw dropped further. La Maison was his aspirational business lunch spot, the one he'd been trying to get reservations at for months. Of course, I said, smiling. Marcus, you'll excuse us. Important business to discuss. I left him standing there, still clutching his notepad like a shield. That evening, I arrived home to find Marcus waiting, his perfectly styled hair now slightly disheveled. How long? He demanded as soon as I walked in. How long have you been planning this? Planning what? I set my briefcase down, my new briefcase, purchased during a lovely shopping trip with Patricia after lunch. Getting an education. Working hard? Being recognized for my capabilities? Unlike some people, I don't need to plan ways to exclude my spouse from my success. He had the grace to look slightly ashamed but pressed on. You should have told me about the night school. Like you told me about uninviting me to your party? I countered. Or was I supposed to bring it up during one of your many late nights at the office? That's different, he protested. I was building my career. And what exactly do you think I was doing? I walked to our bedroom and began changing out of my work clothes. The difference is, I didn't build my career by stepping on others or hiding my spouse away like a shameful secret. I never, he started, then stopped. I was trying to protect you. No, I turned to face him. You were trying to protect yourself, your image, your ego. Well, congratulations. Now you can proudly tell your colleagues that your wife is an executive. Isn't that what you always wanted? The irony seemed to hit him then, and he sank onto the bed. Emma, I'm sorry. I never meant. Never meant what? To make me feel small. To dismiss everything I've worked for. To treat me like an embarrassment. I pulled out my night school diplomas from the drawer where I kept them hidden. I did this while cleaning offices at night, while you were at your business dinners and networking events. I did this despite you, not because of you. He reached for the diplomas, but I pulled him back. I have a meeting early tomorrow. I should get some sleep. Emma, please. Good night, Marcus. Don't wait up. As I turned out the light, I could almost hear the sound of his perfectly constructed world crumbling around him. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just success. It's success they never saw coming. The next few weeks at Moore Enterprises were filled with awkward encounters. Marcus seemed to have developed a supernatural ability to sense my presence, always finding urgent meetings to attend whenever I entered a room. His confidence, once bordering on arrogance, had deflated like a punctured balloon. My days, on the other hand, were filled with meetings, presentations, and meaningful work. Patricia became more than just a mentor. She became a friend, showing me the ropes of corporate leadership without ever making me feel like the former cleaner I once was. You know, she said one afternoon over coffee, Robert and I watched you for months. The way you implemented those cost-saving measures, how you managed the cleaning staff. We knew you were executive material long before Marcus's little party incident. I stirred my coffee thoughtfully. I still can't believe you recognized me from his desk photo. He took that down years ago. Patricia's eyes twinkled. Oh, he did. But I make it my business to know everyone in this company, especially the ones making real changes while others are just making noise. One evening, as I was preparing a presentation for the board, Marcus appeared in my office doorway. He looked different. Humbled, maybe even a little lost. Can we talk? He asked quietly. I gestured to the visitor's chair, the same type of expensive leather seat he had been so proud to get for his office. He sat, fidgeting with his tie. I found these, he said, pulling out a stack of papers, my old cleaning schedules marked with notes about efficiency improvements and cost-saving ideas. They were mixed in with my files. I never really looked at them before. You never really looked at a lot of things, Marcus. He winced. I know. I was so focused on climbing the ladder, on impressing everyone, that I didn't see what was right in front of me. He paused, struggling with words that clearly didn't come easily. You were never simple, Emma. I was the simple one. I set down my pen, studying the man I married 15 years ago. He looked older now, the weight of his mistakes evident in the lines around his eyes. Do you remember why I started cleaning at night? I asked. He shook his head. Because you said we needed extra money for your MBA. I took the job so you could focus on your studies. Then I kept it because I saw an opportunity to learn, to make things better, even if it was just creating more efficient cleaning routes or introducing environmentally friendly products. While I was showing off at parties and chasing promotions, he added quietly, yes, I didn't soften the blow. He needed to hear this. You became so obsessed with appearances that you forgot what really matters. Success isn't about who you impress at parties, Marcus. It's about the value you bring, the changes you make, the people you lift up instead of push down. He was quiet for a long moment. I've been offered a transfer, he finally said, to the Boston office. I think maybe I should take it. I felt an unexpected pang in my chest. Despite everything, 15 years of marriage doesn't just evaporate. Is that what you want? I think it's what we need, he replied. You've built something amazing here, Emma. You deserve to shine without me casting shadows. 2 months later, I helped Marcus pack the last of his things. Our divorce was amicable, perhaps the first truly honest thing we'd done together in years. As he loaded the final box into his car, he turned to me. I got an invitation to the annual corporate gala, he said. I'm not going, but you should wear that blue dress. It was never simple. I was just too blind to see its elegance. I did wear the blue dress to the gala. Patricia insisted on accessorizing it with some borrowed jewelry that probably cost more than my old yearly cleaning salary. As I stood at the podium, accepting an award for the company's new sustainable practices program, I caught my reflection in the glass. I saw a woman who had built herself from the ground up, who had turned late nights and hidden dreams into something remarkable. The cleaning cart had been my first office, the empty halls my first boardroom, and every criticism and dismissal just another lesson in determination. After the gala, Patricia handed me an envelope. The Boston office needs help with their environmental program, she said with a meaningful look. Robert thinks you're the perfect person to oversee the expansion. I opened the envelope to find a proposal for a nationwide sustainability initiative, with me as the director. My eyes widened at the scope and the salary. What do you think? She asked, ready to show them how it's done. I smiled, thinking of Marcus in Boston, probably still learning the hard way that true success isn't about appearances. You know what? Let their current cleaning staff make proposals first. Sometimes the best ideas come from the people others overlook. Patricia laughed. And that's exactly why you're perfect for this job. As I drove home that night, I passed the office building where I used to clean. The night crew was arriving, badges and keys jangling, ready to do the invisible work that kept everything running. I thought about stopping, about telling them to keep dreaming, keep learning, keep proving everyone wrong. But I didn't need to. They would find their own paths, just as I had found mine. Success doesn't need an audience or approval. Sometimes it just needs a push broom, a dream, and the courage to keep going when others tell you to stay small. I parked in my usual spot, next to the shiny executive sign with my name on it, and smiled. Sometimes the best revenge isn't just proving them wrong, it's becoming so right that they can't help but see their own mistakes.